Cool. Okay, sweet. So we are podcasting from two very different climates right now, um, as experienced or exhibited by our choice in shirts, I suppose. Cool. So what have you been up to, Ashana?
Oh, in this really interesting time, I would have to say I've been on a really delicious sabbatical. So it's been very, very good for me, for us. My husband and I just bought a house. So back in,
Wow,
yeah, it's our
congratulations.
first house, and we moved in. We bought it in January, and we moved in the first week of May. And so the whole, you know, I really know that a lot of people have been struggling deeply with this time, and I have tremendous compassion for that. And I have to say that this is like the best thing. I, know, I, I, I don't know whether I should laugh at that or I should be, embarrassed to say that or I should, go, oh dear. But it's been wonderful because we've just had the time and the space available to us to settle in. And I have loved not focusing on any kind of live events during this period because it's done two things for me. Being an artist and just constantly producing. I didn't realize how much I needed a break, and it's been a blessing. I feel like I have been on kind of enforced rest, and it's been extremely good and continues to be extremely good for my body and my spirit, my heart. I've been taking some classes and doing some very deep dive studying in subjects that are very important to me. And I was in a coaching program last year, and I continued it again this year. But last year, because I was so busy with stuff, I really felt like I didn't take advantage of it, and now I'm immersed. And it is so good. It just feels so good to be learning
Hmm.
and growing, you know. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in a good way.
I think that happens a lot to artists where there's just so much giving, giving, giving,
Yeah.
and you don't necessarily give yourself the time to recover or think you need it, you know. Yeah. Because
Yes.
so how much were you traveling, touring last
Well,
year?
not last year was probably the least amount. It was very intense up through about 2015, and then I started backing off because traveling with crystal singing bowls is extremely labor intensive. It's just really, really, really labor intensive. And as much as I love sharing them with people, the back end of it is very tiring. So I cut back, and I cut back on the traveling, and uh, well, I have to say I cut back, but we did multiple crisscross trips across country, but we stopped the international travel at that point in
Hmm.
time, and just stayed home. I canceled some trips, and I started focusing on new music. So from starting in around 2016, 27, yeah, it was like 2017, my producer, Thomas Barquee, and we just started creating. And so we spent the last 4 years really creating, and we didn't release anything. So I haven't released anything since 2014, but we have like a backlog of 5 projects that haven't gotten out yet. So that's the other blessing of this hiatus is that now we're starting to focus on releasing product, you know.
Hmm.
So,
Was there a
and,
reason for the holding back of the music? Didn't feel ready?
well, yeah, for one of them, well, let me think about it. They each had their own specific reasons for holding back. You know, I really believe there's something called divine timing. And the the powers that be, the energetics around everything would not allow, there was no smooth, yes, we're going to do this. And the interesting thing about it is that one of the projects that I did, which is very, very different. It's a whole sound healing immersive experience with media and music, and it's taken me 3 years to do this. You know, it wasn't the kind of thing where I just turned it around. Like an album
Hmm.
has its, has its a normal time frame for an album can be about 6 months to a year, or 9 months to a year, maybe 18 months. But this project just took tremendous amount of time, and I kept revising. So some of the parts of it got revised several times. It just got better and better and better as we went along, and as I learned more, because I was working in a medium that I had never worked before, so I had a big learning curve.
Yeah.
So, and then I have a standard of about what I'm releasing, and what I had initially done, not the music, but the learning curve part. It didn't meet my standard, so it didn't match the standard of the music.
Hmm.
So we had to go back to the drawing board. So all of that took time. And in order to support that project, I had to completely revamp the whole back end of my website and the way that we were delivering product. And so it was kind of like, you go into one thing and you go in innocently, right? Because you get this inspiration and it comes in and you say, okay, yes, I'm going to do that. And I started doing that. And as soon as I got the easy stuff done, like the music was like this, it just it was like a snap. It was done and it was amazing. It is amazing. And then we started doing the rest of it, and I would peel back one thing and there would be like 7 things staring at me that had to be looked at before. And then I would go into them one by one, and it was like Russian dolls, It was so everything just took 10 times, 20 times longer. And I got to a point where I was like, I let go. I totally surrendered to this process because I am absolutely not in control, and I really get that. so so I surrendered to it. And so yeah, we're just now, that project will release in 2021. We were supposed to release it this year. We were supposed to release it last year. And it's just like, nope. So we got a lot of the back end of it done and ready. And I'm still working on it. So it'll take me another couple of months to tidy up the back end. But we're going to release some smaller projects because that's a biggie. It's a very,
Yeah.
very, very big project. And we'll release a few things before that.
So it sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a huge live component thing too.
A live component?
Because it's multimedia. Is it live or
No, no, it wasn't it wasn't live, but it was a lot of video and a lot of teaching. It's like it really, this level I don't believe has quite been done before, but it's a combination of immersive sound healing, and education.
Oh, okay.
So I
So
wanted
it's a
to.
physical, it's a release, like you would release a CD. I was imagining like a live performance when you were
Yeah,
talking
it's gonna be streamed though. I mean, it'll be
about it. Okay.
available through streaming only.
Oh, okay.
So because anybody who walks into it is gonna be walking into a 6-week online course, but it's not an online course like, oh, you're just going to study and then you're going to go do something. This
Hmm.
is like the whole experience and the background of understanding what you're doing at the same time. So you're having this immersive experience, video and visuals and sound, but you're also learning why it's working at the same time. So I wanted to teach people how to fish.
Like
I
actual fish?
No, in a metaphor. You're so cute. You know that saying, you can.
My jaw is dropping like that
Ashana,
really
you're
came
going
out
into
of left
fishing?
field.
No, I'm not. Did you know that expression? It's like, you can feed somebody, but
I see.
but
Okay,
you
yeah.
can or you can teach them how to fish, and then they
Right.
can feed themselves for life.
Got
And
it.
that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give people, I wanted to give them the tools. I wanted to give them the understanding. I wanted them to be able to take care of themselves and work with their own self-healing in a very non-passive way. So it was like a soapbox for me,
Hmm.
because you have like in sound healing, you're usually dependent on going to somebody for an experience, and that is a wonderful thing, and you really can't replicate that live experience of being around, being in a kirtan, being in a with a group, and the whole dynamic vibrancy, the life nourishing energy of live music is irreplaceable, really, because you have the whole collective experience that's generated by the audience and the artists that are doing their thing. So you can never replace that. But where I was at with it was like, well, what happens? What happens for people in between? What happens when they can go to their sound healing experience with the bowls and the gongs and the whatevers, you know, you know, and then the next one isn't until the next month. And
Or next year, is it
or
now?
next year, depending, yeah, really,
Yeah.
depending on where you are, or never,
Mhm.
depending on your location, because you might be living in an area that just doesn't offer that. And so you're you're very limited in the resources. So I wanted to be able to put this into people's hands in such a way, with instruction and guidance and inspiration, um, on multiple layers, on multiple levels. I mean, it's a big project. There are multiple layers of how this works for them in a self-guided course where they can actually see the results over a long period of time, and they can calibrate it for themselves and say, wow, this works,
Mhm.
or it doesn't, depending on who you are, and what the time and the energy and the effort that you want to put into something. So that's what I mean by I wanted to teach people how to fish.
Mhm.
So, so
Cool.
it's taken a lot. It's taken a lot to do that
Sounds
project.
like it.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a biggie. So I've been very quiet, in some ways for the last few years. Artistically, I've just been really quiet. But like on the surface, it looks really quiet. But in the background, there's so much going on.
I've seen your crystal bowl truck, I think at
The
Satnam
truck.
Fest.
Yeah.
And or van. And I just wanted to come back to something you said in the beginning, because it never occurred to me that you took all these bowls across seas. Can you explain to me how you do that?
Very carefully. Like super carefully. Yeah, when we travel overseas, I take a limited. I don't take all of them. I take a small set. What I call the concert set,
Okay.
and so you have to leave the big gigantic super grades at home, because that's just unrealistic. And depending on where I go, I was invited to last year to go to Australia, and I ended up not going on that trip. But I had basically arranged that we would be traveling two bowls, because, I have friends and colleagues over there that have sets that I would be able to use. So we wouldn't have to like drag. But I would have brought probably, between 18 and 25 of my own, and then just supplemented it
That's still quite a bit. Like,
Mhm.
do you carry, do you buy seats for them? Do you like, how do you do that?
No, they have their own cases, and they're packed in hard cases, and anywhere between 5 and 7 bowls in a case. So, usually traveling on the airplane, we'll pack two hard cases, two 12-inch hard cases in, and that go through luggage,
Hmm.
and they're packed in multiple layers, so they're super well protected inside the travel process. And then, we've learned over the years of doing this, how to label the boxes and what to do, because, going through TSA and is a chore. I mean, I haven't had any bowls break with TSA, but if I hadn't done double layers of packing, they would have,
Hmm.
because they just see the box and then they just kind of tie it and then they move it on. And if I hadn't had my bowls in a hard case, strapped in with padding around it, holding the whole case in place, I would have lost them,
Hmm.
you know. So we've learned over the course of time, how to get this through um, the airport security. And then, so we usually take two big boxes, and then we take two 10-inch cases, because my husband travels with me. So um, we take one case each, and then we'll take two practitioners. And then so all our personal stuff, uh, can go in like a waist, a fanny pack or something. And then that's it. So it's very labor intensive.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It is. And it just gets, it's a lot. It's a
Mhm.
lot. So you got to really, 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 really love it and really be dedicated to travel it. And can tell you, I love being home. So, and I love being able to do things, in the studio and virtually, because the pace is so much easier. And, I have 100 bowls, Sirgun. Seriously, I have 100. And they have their own room in the house. And, to be able to play them all in public just isn't realistic. But I can play and share with people from my own home, and do it that way.
Yeah.
So, that's going to, more and more of that's going to be coming as we settle in more to our house, our
Yeah.
new house.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I remember too, because the one and only time that we performed together was when Guru Ganesha came to Phoenix.
that's right. I
Remember
remember
how
that.
amazing singing with your bowl was. But I remember you making a joke that you didn't own a home because you had bought so many crystal
It's
bowls.
true.
Congratulations for overcoming that obstacle.
When my dad, he before he died, I had brought him some bowls. I did a little concert for him at the rehab center where he was recovering, and well, I put one in his hands, and he looked at it. It was a beautiful emerald platinum bowl. It was so precious, and he looks at it and he goes, "How many of these do you have?" I said, "Well, Dad, I got about 100." And he goes, "And how much do they cost?" And I told him. And he goes, "You could buy a house with that." And I said, like, "Yeah, Dad, this is
Yeah.
my house. You're holding it in your hands." That's the bathroom window.
Good.
It was
I
so
remember my mom saying something similar to me about my college tuition. It's like, but don't you understand how amazing it is that I'm at this? In retrospect, I think she was right.
Yeah, I think so too. But it was one of those things when you think about like all the money I spent on going to college, and
Yeah.
God, I could have learned so much else.
I know, I know. Well, and I mean, when I was going to college, I imagine when you were going to college, it wasn't like there was this whole internet world of resources at our
It
fingertips like there are
wasn't.
now. So I mean, now even more so. Yeah, it's amazing. So, what else are you up to?
What else am I up to? I'm studying. I'm
Oh,
learning.
that's right. You said that.
I'm
What
growing, you
do you want to
know?
share something that you've learned or that you're intrigued by right now?
Oh, well, like for there's two things. The two big focus that I'm involved in, I'm immersed in actually right now. I'm studying a form of healing Qigong, and I love it. I love it. It's so good for my body and my spirit. And, after years and years and years of doing yoga, um, I am just, I feel like, you know, I feel like probably couldn't have done Qigong. I know I couldn't have done Qigong years ago. I was too vata, my mind was like too like,
Mm-hmm.
like all the time. And the only kind of practice that I could do to settle that down had to have more fire and more air energy into it. But I've changed so much, I've grown so much, and now I can move into stillness. So doing Qigong is very much earth and light oriented. And so the whole practice is one of slowing me down. And this particular kind of Qigong has four components to it. It has a physical practice for vitality, and it has a, a deeply meditative, almost Tai Chi type of movement that is done standing in place with very intense visualization for bringing light into the body. And then the third component is all sound, which is awesome. And then the fourth component is meditation. So all of that is exactly where I need to be right now. That practice of deepening presence and centering and grounding in the body, especially after so many years of playing bowls and 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 doing kundalini yoga. This is just bringing me like woo, in and into the center, into the dantian, deeply grounded in the body, and also the activation of light on the cellular level, which is quite profound. And so that practice dovetails beautifully, interestingly enough, in the study that I'm doing with my mantra teacher, Russell Paul. And where I'm studying there is extremely comprehensive. I've been studying Sanskrit mantra for a while now. And this is beyond just Sanskrit mantra. It is the study of Sri Vidya Tantra. So this is a form of Gnostic Tantra. And it is about deepening one's relationship with the divine so that it becomes extremely personal and very familiar. And parts of those practices are mudra and a lot of mantra. Like right now, I'm learning to do ritual pujas. So I spent last year learning the puja for the divine feminine for Saraswati. And this year I'm learning Shiva puja. So I know they sound like, these two things in some ways are like, at opposite ends of the spectrum. But the truth is that they're not. They're completely compatible and aligned with each other. And then on top of that, I've been taking a class for the last couple of weeks with one of my spiritual mentors on bioconscious healing. So, which is really about working with healing at the quantum level. So I love all of this because I feel like I'm like deepening my own experience of healing at a very tangible, much more visceral, powerful way. Um, I've had my own healing challenges over the past several years, and so this is reframing my whole relationship with my body. And when the big project comes out next year, is there's going to be a place where I'm going to be holding space for, I anticipate, thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And to be able to hold that space from another much deeper level of wisdom and life experience, I feel like I'm going to be so much better equipped to share authentically and to be, what I hope is an inspiration for people. Mm. So everything I'm doing now is I always end up sharing everything I do. I mean, not everything, but some things I keep to myself. But I'm just wired that way, that if I learn something and it helps, and somebody needs help and they ask me, I'm absolutely going to share that with them.
Yeah.
So
sounds like a lot of sort of groundwork and framework being built in this time for you, which
yes,
I think is great, because you have the time right now. And yeah. Do you find that so you were saying that you were a lot quicker, or a lot fast? Is that due to the fact that you've had to slow down in the past few years, or chosen to slow down, do you think? Or do you think you slowed down and therefore you've wanted to travel less?
I had to slow down. My body couldn't take it anymore physically. Mm-hmm. I'd reached a certain point in the way that I was doing things, energetically, internally, that could no longer sustain itself. And that was the point when things just started breaking down. And it happened most intensively for me last year, and towards the end of the year, as my drivers, my internal drivers were, up until that point, had always been, do as much as I can do and push to get things done, and using my willpower to just barrel through stuff, and it got to the point where that absolutely couldn't happen anymore. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. It was like, you are so done with this cycle, and you are so done, we are going to put you flat on your back so that you will stop. And it got to the point where if I would step out for a moment and my energy was not congruent with a higher vibration, my physical would feel like it was exploding, and so I couldn't. I had to do a lot of deep healing. I've had to do a lot of deep healing over the course of the last many months on just how I process emotions, and that's continuing to go on, and how I stay inside of myself and my relationship with my own energy. But also on a much deeper level, it's been about healing the sense of disconnect that I've experienced spiritually. And so there was my soul just said, okay, we've reached this level, and now we have to go to another level. We have to go to a much higher level vibrationally with all of you. And so you have to stop. And so I did. I couldn't do much more. And now there was also another piece, and part of that was that the intensity of living in the city of Phoenix.
Mm.
And for somebody as vibrationally sensitive as I am, and if you've been playing bowls as long as I've done, 20 years, you get really, really sensitive to energies. And the entire electromagnetic vibration, the EMFs, the 6 million people, the living in a very, 6 months of the year in a very hot place without nature, was killing me, actually. I can say that because now that we're out of it, and that's nothing against the city of Phoenix. I mean, seriously, like Zippo against the city of Phoenix. I met so many wonderful people there. We feel so blessed and grateful for all the time that we spent living there. But it was not sustainable for my physical form. I just couldn't manage that kind of energy. It was too hard on me. So when we moved, and we've been living here in our new house for about just about 2 months now, it's like I can feel the deep levels of reset that are happening just on so many levels. Like my nervous system feels like it's starting to unwind itself. So I had been holding myself in a very tightly wound energetic pattern just to maintain stability living in the city.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also not just for me. It wasn't just that it was a city. It was that lack of greenery, really hard.
Exactly.
Really hard. I mean, cacti, a few Palo Verde, but like for the most part, you would escape the city and it would actually be even more barren than
depending on where you went.
Yeah, depending on where you were. You could drive to some forest. It's different. I mean, here I'm in Washington, and it's actually like wet. It's that works very well for me. But
yeah, I know it's a beautiful state. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but I mean, just the idea, just the fact that you can walk outside your door. I assume that you have you have a similar thing that you can, or drive close by and take a really beautiful walk.
We don't have to drive close by to take the walk.
You can go right outside.
I mean, we have such beautiful walks here, and it's not green like Washington where we are, but it's more like the climate of Santa Fe. It's because you're up about 3,700 feet altitude, so in the hills. And our new house, you go into the backyard and we can see the Mingus Mountains in the distance. And then we take a walk, and we walk about, maybe about a quarter of a mile, and we can be on trails. And you just, and we do. We just walk out the house, we go right out the area where we're living, and, take a walk, and we're on hiking trails. And walking on those trails, juniper, a scrub pine and juniper, and up into these little lightly rolling hills, and you can see vista in 360 degrees around you. And the sky, this big azure blue sky with big fluffy clouds, and space, earth and space. And it's like, oh. My heart just, I think the most important thing for me when we were moving was I just wanted vista. My soul, I think, maybe it's because I'm a Capricorn, they say the goat up the mountain. It's like I've got to see, I want to stand and look out and see. When we lived in Mount Shasta, we lived on the back side of the mountain, and we would stand outside our deck every day, and we would watch the sunrise, and there would be like us and the mountain, and there was nothing in between it. It was just profound. I mean, incredible.
I didn't realize you lived at Mount Shasta.
Yeah, for 3 years we lived there.
Wow. We drove through there to come up here, and it was so, I mean, it's like unbelievably gorgeous.
Yeah, it
Did
is
you
amazingly gorgeous.
did you just not feel like you wanted to live there anymore, or it,
Mount Shasta is a dormant volcano, and the earth is very alive there. And when James and I lived there, we said we went on a 3-year personal retreat. We processed all the time. And when we would leave the mountain and we would go, oh my God. Finally, we were just like, that's enough. We actually got spit out by the mountain. We were actually on tour traveling, and the property manager that called us one day, it was like the end of November, right around Thanksgiving, and we actually were in Phoenix, as a matter of
Mhm.
fact. And he said, "Where are you?" And we said, "We're in Phoenix." And he says, "Don't go home. Don't come home. Your house is uninhabitable." So they
Okay.
had a freeze, and the pipes had burst, and
Oh,
so
wow.
our basement had been flooded. So he said,
So
"Just stay there."
did you literally just stay in Phoenix, or did you end up going back?
No, we stayed in Phoenix for, let's see, when did we go back? We went back sometime, I can't remember, James would remember, but sometime in January. We stayed there till after we stayed there through Christmas, and I think through the New Year, and then we came back in January, and we had the day that we were leaving Phoenix was the day that we found our house in Phoenix.
Okay,
And
so
so
you moved
we
from Mount Shasta to Phoenix. Okay.
Yeah, we moved from Mount Shasta to Phoenix. So we went up to Shasta, and then we stayed for another 6 weeks, and then we moved in February.
Wow, that's a change. I mean,
Yeah, it was
like
like,
in so many ways.
we didn't plan to move to Phoenix.
Huh.
James said my husband James,
Yeah.
he just said, we got our next assignment, and that's kind of the way I've pretty much lived my life, has been our next assignment is, and I started that, from I would just go where the energy would flow, and that's where I ended up. So I went from Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is where I lived for 17 years, and then I met James and moved to Portland to be with him. From Portland, we moved to Shasta,
Hmm.
and then Shasta, we moved to Phoenix. We lived in Phoenix for 6 years. And then it was time. Our time in Phoenix was up. And literally, the universe gave us this house, practically. It was just like, you're done, and you're moving now.
Wow.
And you've been asking, I felt like we got this house as a reward. Because it's everything that we wanted,
Oh, well,
so beautiful.
that's such a nice way to think about that, like anything. I mean, that's so great. Like that's a real sense of like feeling that you deserve what you have. I love that.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're so grateful. I mean, we wake up every single morning here and we just go, thank you. You walk around the house and just like, I love my room. I love my bedroom. I love my bathroom. I love my backyard. I love my front yard.
Oh, I love that. That's so
It's
cool.
just so sweet, it's just sweet. And my husband, James, he's in his previous one of his previous lives. He's a Native Hawaiian healer now. I wasn't sure if you knew that, but
Yeah, I did
that's
that. I did
yeah,
that.
that's what he does. That's part of his who he is. But before that really blossomed and unfolded, he had a career as a master carpenter, and he was a quality control expert for a multi-million dollar yacht company. So he'd like build
Oh, wow.
boats and refinished mansions and did all this intense carpentry work, and so he had this whole background on houses and building. Well, for the last, like, God, I don't even know how many years now, he wasn't focused on any of that. He was really focused on deeply doing his life work, his soul work, right? Well, now he's in his house and he's like, well, let's fix this and we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. And every day he's like, I think we should do, and I'm like, go for it, honey.
Is that something that you're like, is that how you know him? Or have you always known him as a Native Hawaiian healer?
I always know him as a healer.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is kind of new, sort of like a new aspect of your relationship, yeah, where he's
It's not new. I wouldn't say it's new, but because he was always like, the blessing of being married to a partner who can fix anything. I mean, I think that's God's gift, to somebody like me.
Yeah.
But no, what I see though inside of him, which is so beautiful, is is that part being now brought in and integrating and being allowed to flourish in a way where he's doing it for him, for us. He's doing it to provide beautiful space and a beautiful energy and a beautiful home. And so all of the energy healing pieces that he does are being done simultaneously. So I'll give you an example. So when we got the house, we had to strip down everything. We put in new flooring, and we had to paint because we wanted the house to be very, very light, and it had been painted very dark colors, and we wanted everything really light. So my husband wanted to paint all the walls himself. And so we put mantras and affirmations on the walls, on the floors, and he energetically gridded the house room by room as he painted.
Oh.
So the energy in the house is so stable. It's filled with so much love, and it was filled with that level of love, underneath the flooring, underneath the paint. It's literally been infused into the walls and into the floors now. So there's like this merging, of the healer and the craftsman in service to not just the family, but all of the work that we do is now sitting on top of this foundation of peace. And we've never had that before. We've always lived in homes that we rented, and so you could do so much to that, and we would energetically clear and grid and do all of that. But this is at a completely new level. It's a much, much deeper level. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's really beautiful. Yeah. It sounds like the physical equivalent of what you're doing anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That's exactly right. So you do the work, whether it's through sound or bowls or yoga or qigong or whatever it is you do, body work, energy healing, prayer, meditation, and now we're actually building an external structure that is holding the space consciously for all of that to have a container.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I feel so blessed. I mean, really.
Do you have a name for your house?
No, I never thought of naming it.
I was just thinking about that as you were saying it because there's so much love put into it that, yeah.
God, that's really. I mean, we named our what you doing it? The internet service.
Oh, your wire, no, what's it called? Your Wi-Fi?
Yeah, the Wi-Fi. You know, it has a Hawaiian name. So, and don't ask me. I can't remember what it means, but I think it means something like, beautiful, beautiful family or beautiful home, something like
Aw,
that. So, but I
neat.
I forget. I mean, I know what it is, Hawaiian, but I don't remember the exact meaning. You'd have to ask James.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Ashana, for joining me on my podcast. I really appreciate you and what you're doing, um, and your willingness to talk to me about it. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. So,
Yeah. So how can people find out more about what you'll be releasing soon and what you're doing now and all that?
well, you can go to soundofashana.com
Okay. And I'll share
and
that in the podcast
yeah,
description so you can click on it.
soundofashana.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Sound of Ashana. We're super easy, and if you go to the website and you sign up for our newsletter, which we do not send out tons and tons of, so don't worry about that. Um, you'll get some beautiful music as a gift.
Oh, cool.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Great. So definitely do that. And yeah, have a beautiful 100-degree rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think.
I hope it cools down.
I know my assistant lives in the Columbia Gorge in Oregon,
Uh-huh.
and she was on the phone with me the other day, and she was wearing a hat and a fleece woolly, and I was like, "Don't even go there with me."
I was in Idaho last week and it was going to be 50 degrees.
Oh my God.
Instead, it's like they're having a little winter slash springtime right now. Yeah. Anyway.
They're roasting. And we're roasting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, sweetie. That was
Absolutely.
such
Thank
so
you.
fun talking to you.
Yeah, you too. All right. Bye.
All right, bye bye.